Hi everyone, it's Jerry. This is game one from the FIDE Women's World Chess Championship match 2025. On the white end, defending champion Ju Wenjun, playing against challenger Tan Zhongyi. Time controls for this best of 12 games match, 90 minutes apiece, 30-second increment throughout, and once move 40 is reached, there's that bonus time of 30 minutes. So in this first game here, what we're seeing here in Open Sicilian, one other note about this match, the first 6 games are scheduled to be played in Shanghai. Ju Wenjun, a native of Shanghai, so playing with a home field advantage for these first 6 games, the defending champion. Games 7 through 12, on the other hand, are scheduled to be played in Tan Zhongyi's neck of the woods, that is Chongqing. All right, from here we have knight f6, some pressure on e4. How to defend this? In the game, it's bishop to d3. Don't play e5 unless you want to lose a pawn. Bishop d3 in this game. Knight challenged. We get a knight exchange. And now a follow-up move here, bishop f4. Now, a routine-like move, such as castles instead, this gives black a different structure to consider. If you go with castles, black could consider putting the pawn here on e5. Okay, by playing bishop f4, we rule that possibility out for black. We're x-raying, or directly observing, we might say, the weakest square in black's camp at the same time, d6. Black plays with the majority, d5 on board, 2-1 majority for black. And white is there in time to now support this point here on e4. Remains flexible with this e-pawn, does not yet commit to a capture or a push. We simply support e4, and we're doing so from d2 specifically. The knight is not going to its favorite square. The knight is staying clear of the c-pawn. It will like to contribute shortly and increase pressure on black's strongest pawn. So knight d2 it is. From here we have g6. Now, a move you might think is perfectly healthy here for white. Castles, not a good decision at this stage. In the game, we have bishop to g5 here. Now, there's a couple things going on with black's last move. The first that springs to mind for me, well, okay, black is prepared to fianchetto. That's true, but the other detail is that this pawn also supports knight to h5, which challenges that dark square bishop. And in fact, if white in this position castles, let me just put this on, knight h5 will eventually track down the dark square bishop. White can't really avoid this particular exchange of pieces. So what am I talking about? Well, if you try to save the bishop, bishop e3, you would lose. d4 and the bishop is cooked. Bishop to e5, there's f6. And now you have to drop back, and there you go. We get a knight for bishop exchange. You go to d4, you're hit with e5. You go to c3, similar to the post on e3. d4 will squash that bishop. So white takes this idea here, knight h5, into account. No routine move, castles, bishop g5 on board. These two players, by the way, very evenly matched. FIDE ratings, Ju Wenjun 2561, Tan Zhongyi 2555. So does not get much closer than that. Now from here, bishop question, the pin naturally maintained. And at this stage, the pin is broken. Bishop e7 played here. This is not a moment to still continue on with, well, I played g6 so I could fianchetto. No, things have changed. You have to sort out this pin. Bishop g7 here, e5. And it would be too late at that point to try and break the pin because we would have a Pac-Man pawn. Chop, chop. You'd be losing out. So important to break this pin. Bishop e7 it is. Castles only now. In comes a5. That's an isolated pawn running. maybe paving the way in some cases for bishop to a6. It is a new move that's available. A deeper point behind a5, this pawn will look to sort of play a minority attack role. At some point when there's pressure on this pawn, the convenient way to address that pressure is with b3. Well, there you go. Black at that point will be what? One move away from trading off that isolated pawn for a much healthier white b pawn. All right, from here, finishing some development, rook's connected, black now castles, centralized rook, and the offer of a dark square bishop exchange. We get the bishop exchange here. The other option to maintain the bishops, bishop g3, how would this play out exactly? If black really, it's a funny line here, if black really wanted to get a dark square bishop exchange in, if white played here bishop g3, you could do that. Funny looking move, bishop h4 is there, and no matter where the bishop goes, bishop e5, there's bishop f6, or excuse me, not bishop e5, bishop f4, there's bishop g5, bishop d6, there's bishop e7. You can't duck that dark square bishop exchange, so if black really wants to get that in, you could. What we end up seeing here is the bishop exchange. Follow up, c4, challenging the strongest pawn, and from here knight e5. So this is going to spark a series of exchanges. The position simplifies a bit. We do get an imbalance through these exchanges. Knight for bishop exchange. There we go. This is the big difference in the position now. C takes on d5. Queen e3. Pressure on h6, and perfectly solid, a very strong move here. Queen to g5, offering a queen exchange. It's a very well-positioned white queen here. Black is okay taking on double g-pawns, and we see exactly that. We do get this queen exchange, so doubled g-pawns for black. Also, after this exchange on d5, we could note there's an isolated pawn, a passed pawn as well. Is this a liability or an asset? Doesn't seem like it's a very dangerous pawn. Well under control, nearly going to be blockaded with the knight, maybe the rook. Okay, interesting endgame structure from here. Rook f to e1, couple rooks activated. Sure enough, b3 is the response to that pressure on the b pawn. And notice at this stage we do not have a4 straight away. So this next move I really like. This would probably be the first move that would cross my mind here, to just sort of be consistent with that earlier a5, but there's no rush just yet with a4 in this position. Instead, we have g4. So really for the remainder of this game, this is where there is a great focus on the g4 pawn. It's invasive. It's sort of cramping white's kingside pawns and has a great influence in general on the white king. Now, why do I say this? Well, there's still rooks on board. There's still major pieces on board. And when that's the case, what do you want to do? Create a flight square. Well, what's your flight square exactly? Do you want to play h3? Well, you're going to be dropping a pawn. Do you want to play g3 and weaken light squares when your opponent has a light square bishop? No. You could play f3 on the other hand at this stage. This is not white's approach at this stage. Doesn't go with f3. It is possible. Has some cramping effect on white here, playing g4 rather than a4 straight away. So we could also note g4 is taking away knight f3, maybe into d4, but in general, okay, you're blockading that passed pawn. What might be even better is this idea to just target that pawn. So we see this idea in action. Some maneuver of the knight, didn't have a good forward square. So knight f1, knight e3 nearby. There we go. We'd see that direct connection with the pieces there on d5. a4 only now. B takes A, rook b4, doubled, isolated. Black will eventually get that pawn back. In comes a5, rook a4, best piece in the game currently. Sandwiched between these isolated pawns. The a5 pawn is not really a great bother to black. It'll be scooped up whenever black wants, pretty much. White, for the moment, is up 2 pawns, but one of them is going to be won back shortly. First bishop development. This is really a fantastic piece. Once this knight is on its next square here, its most efficient square, e3, the bishop tames that knight really well. All right, the rook kicked to c5 in this case. Rook takes A. In comes knight to e3. And from here, at this point, black goes hunting for the a-pawn. If there's some way to maybe try and put pressure on white, it would be with rook to b8 instead. Rook b8, and then rook b to b2, targeting f2. Again, there's this idea of the pawn being cramping to white. How do you create a flight square? Give your king some breathing space. There's a difference here with the quality of the kings. The black king breathing much easier in this position here. How could white approach this position if black tries to double here on the second rank? I want to give you a feel for how you can release this potential pressure as white. So if this was played, here's a nice clean approach here for white. You could go with the doubling on the c file. There's a big intersection square now on c2 available to white. And this would be a perfect response to rook 8 to b2. You could play rook 5 to c2, and this will ensure at least one rook exchange is in there. So it may look something like this. Rook takes, probably best to take with the knight, not abandon your first rank. And this move right here, it starts to be clear. White will next aim to challenge this pawn next. So right around the corner, there will be f3. We'll get that pawn exchange and things are cool. You've solved any difficulties you may have here as white. If black tries to maintain a pawn on g4, it's not the same story. You would end up with double isolated g-pawns, which is a totally different situation than this set of double g-pawns right now. They still remain as a nice, healthy pawn island. All right. That is a way to release any pressure if black went for this doubling here on the second rank. How it's played in this game, black goes hunting immediately for the a-pawn, and meanwhile the white knight is maneuvering here. After a pair of rooks comes off, the white knight maneuvers here to f4 and targets the bishop and also supports something else, similar to that variation I highlighted where the white knight was on e1, there to support an f3 move, and this knight here from f4 is there to support h3. And this really solves any problems white may experience with the king position and flight squares, etc. We get a series of exchanges now on h3. There's no issue if the knight is targeted. You could always consider the capture here on g4. You're on the bishop after that. Black captures here on h3. We chop away on that square, and in the end, pawns are split, but we're only working here with a pair of rooks, and there really isn't much more to play for. And in fact, at this point, the players end up simply repeating here, and we have a peaceful game one. Very comfortable hold, I would say, for the challenger here. In fact, if there's any side who is maybe pressing, it was black in this game towards the ending there with the invasive g-pawn, but overall, very high quality game one. Both players here registering a 99% accuracy. Anyhow, what are your thoughts with this one? Feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.